Alright, so today we're going to do a cap kit on a Kortek KTN-2001, a 19-inch chassis. This one is fully working with no problems. It just needed a quick light dusting of surface dust and wasn't really dirty, didn't need to be washed, and it's all good. It works with no issues, but it does need capped because the factory caps on these are notorious for not being too reliable. Especially these 470 ones over here, these 50 volt 470s, or 47s, I'm sorry, these 160 volt 47s, man, I was way off. There's 3 160 volt 47s, and these 3 here are known to bulge and cause problems, so those 3 especially are very problematic in those locations. So if you ever have one of these come across your your bench or your arcade, or if you ever pick one of these up and it's in front of you, I would change the caps as soon as possible if you have one. Now there is one thing to note. On the KTN-2001, there is no cap in this C611 location. Right here, there you see there's no capacitor in there, but the kit includes a cap for that location, but that's only for the 1401. The 2001 does not use a cap in that location. If you put that cap in that location from it's a 50 volt 100. It's for the 1401, but it's not for this one. So if you put that cap for the 1401 in here, you see it's not there on the 2001. The chassis will just click one time when you try and turn it on. This will heat up and explode. So you don't want to add that cap on the 2001. So I want to put that out there before we start this. So all this is going to be is I'm just going to do a time lapse. No, not time lapse. What am I saying? I'm going to do the entire cap kit in real time. That's what I meant to say. It's still early for me. So I'm going to do a cap kit on this in real time so you can see my method and what I do. The reason I've developed this method over the years is because some chassis have very super thin pads, and just if you use a desoldering gun, if you use a desoldering gun, the pressure you put on the pad with the head of the desoldering gun and going around like this, moving it around, will just tear that pad right off. So I have developed this method to reduce the amount of time and heat needed being applied to the pad to help prevent it from being torn off. And you'll see what I mean. I heat the pad from the bottom back and forth with the iron and pull the cap out from the top. I don't apply braid to the joint, and I don't use a desoldering gun. I don't put braid on the joint until I've got the cap out. Then you can just take the braid and lightly joot, and you get rid of you don't have to clear all the old solder. You don't have to clear all the old solder. Just open the hole enough to get the new legs from the new cap through the hole. That's all you have to do. So I'll try and show my method here as best I can, but we're going to do this in real time because I've had a lot of people ask me, hey, can you do a video on doing a cap kit? I'm like, well, there's lots of cap kit videos out there, but I thought, you know what, it might be high time to go ahead and do one that shows my method because there's no reason not to, and I think my method is probably different from everybody else's out there. Because like I say, you don't want to add a lot of heat directly to the pad because you can lift and damage those pads. That's how people end up damaging pads. You get a chassis where half the pads are missing and half the legs from the new caps are bent over to the next place on the trace. It's because they're using a desoldering gun that's either not hot enough and they're moving it around a lot, or they're putting the braid directly on the pad and heating it up and pushing hard, and it's a bad idea. You want to just heat the pads from the bottom side with the iron, pull the cap out, and then clear out the hole. That's my personal method. So you'll see me do that on pretty much everything. So I'm just going to get down into it here, and we'll do a full real-time cap kit on this. And I probably should do a 7000, so it won't be for this. It won't be as long of a video, but it's all right. It might take an hour or so, and you'll see my method here and what we do and how it turns out. So let's get started here and see how it goes. So there you go, down and dirty, quick and easy. I do want to mention a couple of things. When you're doing these caps that are next to heat sinks, you don't want them to be touching the heat sink directly, because that can induce heat onto the cap and cause it to bake and wear out prematurely. So caps against heat sinks and stuff, make sure they're a little bit away from the heat sink. I did not install that 50 volt 100 microfarad cap. That will explode and keep this from turning on. You saw my method there for cleaning it. You want to make sure when you're wiping this down that you don't bend any component legs over to touch something else. And I just use denatured alcohol as opposed to isopropyl, because it helps get rid of the flux much easier and better and faster and quicker and all that jazz. And you saw I went through and just did some strategic reflow on the remote board input headers and the video input headers and anything else that needed reflowed, the transformer up here, the rectifier diodes, and just give it a good look over. And anything else that needs reflowed, just reflow it, hit it, make it good. And of course, make sure that you don't fly any solder balls off when you're doing your reflow and your soldering. Make sure that when you're doing your desoldering, that your braid doesn't suck up solder from something else next to it, like a corresponding pad that you're not paying attention on, where the braid is laying across a pad, and further down the line it pulls up some solder from another joining joint. Make sure you don't, or make sure you're observant of that. Anything else I want to mention? Yeah, I mean, that's probably about it. I'm sure as soon as I get done with the video, there'll be something I'm thinking of, but make sure that when you're going over these and giving it a good look over, make sure that if there's any like components that are bent over touching something else, like you don't want these resistors touching each other because they'll induce heat upon each other. Make sure everything is nice and straight and not folded over or flat or sideways or crooked. Just give it a good, nice inspection. And you can pretty much call it done. So you saw what I did there. I mean, I personally like to just heat up the pads and pull the cap out, or just rock one leg out. But you have to be careful, because if you heat up one leg at a time and kind of bend it out, the other leg can get pushed up and you can pop a pad off very easily. So you want to be careful and cognizant of that. So it's best to heat up both pads at the same time and just kind of pull the cap out. That's what I do. Now, I also run my iron at 800 degrees Fahrenheit, because you want a higher amount of heat so you can keep the iron on the pad for the least amount of time. So people that run their iron at like 500 degrees or 600 degrees Fahrenheit, or have irons from Radio Shack that only like 20 watts, you know, you're not going to be able to do this kind of work unless you have an iron that can get to at least 750 or 800. That's my personal opinion, Fahrenheit that is. And yeah, you don't want to leave the iron on the pad for, you know, more than a few seconds, or you can lift it, damage it, pull it. So I like to just run around 800, and yeah, I just pull the cap out. And a lot of times the hole will just open right up from pulling the cap out, and you can get lucky and not have to use any desoldering braid at all. But same thing goes with the braid. You don't want to leave this on there and hold the tip on there for like, 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds. You want to just kind of tap it on there, and the least amount of time with the most amount of heat will, in my experience now, prevent you from damaging traces. And again, you want to heat up both pads at the same time and try and wiggle it out. Especially on the K7400, K7500 series of chassis, those pads are paper thin, and if you try and heat up one pad and bend the cap over, you'll pop the other leg right up off the board. So be careful with that. So that's my method. That's how I do it. Hopefully you understood and learned some stuff. But now let's get this back on a tube and get it tested. I do want to mention that this type of neck socket here for the focus wire, I can't get this out of here. You'll see that there's no lip to lift off. How this works is there's a little push tab right there. You push that little tab down, and when you push this little tab down, the wire comes right out. You can see I'm pushing the tab down there. So then when you go to push it back in, it just snaps in like that, and it holds it in. So if you have a neck socket like that, just push that little tab down. Some of them lift up out. Some of these older Wells Gardners, you just lift the tab up and it pulls the wire out. But this one, you push the tab down, and it's a Kortek, obviously. But so, okay, that's about it. I'm probably forgetting something. I think of stuff while I'm doing this of what I want to say, and I didn't write any of it down, so I'm sure I forgot a couple of things. But that's the good majority basis of what you saw there. So let me get this on a tube. We'll try it and use this knowledge to your advantage if you want to, or disadvantage. however you look at it, and hopefully you can learn something here by what you saw. So let's get on tube, try it out, see what happens. Okay, so we're all hooked up, and there's one thing I want to mention here that I think goes without saying. I didn't mention it before, and as I'm hooking this up, I thought, well, I should probably go ahead and mention this, but we all should be aware by now that there's polarity to these electrolytic capacitors. So if we look here, there's a cap. The cap here has a stripe on the side, and there's also a black stripe on the location. So the black stripe obviously has to align with the stripe on the cap. So, you know, don't put those in backwards. Now, take that with a grain of salt, because there's some chassis where they're either mislabeled on the top side or mislabeled on the bottom side, or silkscreened incorrectly and it's actually backwards. So it's important to pay attention to which orientation the cap came out of when you're doing these cap kits. Don't just rely on the silkscreen on the board, because for instance on the MacVisions, there's a series of MacVisions, I believe even some of the tri-modes, where the silkscreens aren't backwards, but they mark the black line as positive. So there's some MacVisions out there where the black line or the half of the circle has a bunch of slashes in it, and that's the positive side. So they mark the positive side as the side with the stripe and the negative as the side without the stripe. So some chassis are backwards. So pay attention when you're doing this of which orientation they came out and put it back in the same way. So there's also this cap right here is the factory one in this location is a 47 microfarad, 50 volt 47. And the instructions in the kit call out a 50 volt 4.7. So it goes from 47 microfarad to 4.7 microfarad because the 47 causes issues with horizontal sizing. So the kit calls out to change the 47 to a 4.7, so that's what I did. Now you don't have to do that, but I do that because that's what the kit calls out. So, and then here's that extra 100 that is supposed to go in that spot right there that we do not want to put in. So we are all hooked up. We have a Mortal Kombat 2 PCB here on the test bench to try and see how this looks or turns out. And yeah, let's see if it blows up or I put something in backwards or something pops. Let's find out. 1, 2, 3. Okay, comes on. And it works. And it worked before, but now it's got some fresh caps and a fresh reflow. So looks like our contrast is a bit too high, so we will turn that down slightly. Brightness up a bit, and let's do some focus here. Top knob on the flyback is focus, and that's about as good as we get. That's a bit better there. Oh, we're slightly too red also. Oh yeah, we're way too red. That should be rectified here momentarily. That's better. Okay, a little bit more brightness. We'll go there. Hey, not bad, not bad. Need to go through and do some little bit more color adjustments, and I just picked this up last weekend from a guy who was parting out some cabinets. So he gave it to me, and it was fairly dirty. I was able to get it nice and clean, and it did work. Just needed capped and reflowed and stuff. But yeah, so I think after some adjustments and things like that, this should turn out to be a nice monitor. So, dun-dun-dun. Sorry. Just voice in my head when I see this. So, okay, there you go. So hopefully this was educational. Hopefully you learned something. If you like it, make sure you comment down below. Make sure you give a thumbs up to the video and hit that share and subscribe button. And I appreciate it. Stay tuned for more. Not sure why that looks so dark. There we go. This camera isn't that... the camera's not that good on the screen transition sometimes, but... yeah, not bad. Okay. Anyway, there we go. Thank you very much.